We're hustling.
You got a new setup there.
Yeah, I got a new angle. I'm
I like
also
it.
standing. I feel like I've been sitting during several of our shows, and so I moved to standing too. So
I need
that's
to
it. Yeah.
stand sometimes too. I
For
like it.
the
I
for
like it.
the for the people watching on video, you have very interesting backdrops. That's what we're discussing. Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah. So we're hustling. We're back. Hustle Machine. Another episode. We've come to talk to you, our wonderful audience, about starting your business, getting
That's right.
started, startups, getting started, new ventures, starting freelancing, starting side hustle. Um, Zach and I started our business 8-9 years ago. We were freelancing on our own before that. We still freelance on our own outside of our business. We are, I guess, consummate hustlers. And so I figured that we would have a lot of insight into what it takes to get a side hustle or a full business started. Um, Things you need to think about before, things you need to think about as you're starting and growing. I feel like this could spawn several like post discussion topics and other episodes, all kinds of stuff. Just figured that people getting started need advice because
Yeah,
they've
and
never done it before.
I think to speak to the people who are like me, and Jason can vouch for this. It's going to take time. You're not going to get to the finish line quickly. That's
Yeah.
how many conversations do you have with me all about that all the time? Like,
Well, our most recent one was a couple days ago,
yeah,
because I've gotten you into a new side hustle to at least start
yeah.
it, and then about 5 minutes into submitting your first project, you were like, "Gosh, I'm not the best at this yet." Like it was like it's gonna take a minute. It's gonna take a minute. Don't get discouraged. Give yourself time. So for like just as like a quick backstory for me, I've got my t-shirt and apparel lines and stuff like that, and I've been doing that for I think about 4 years now, like as an actual thing that makes money. And it was I feel like it was well into a year, maybe a little bit more, where I actually started seeing returns on my work. So um, uh, it takes time. To Zach's point, yes, it does. It does take time, and I want you to know that you need to be okay with not being the best immediately. It makes me think of that reel. Have you seen that reel? That's like it's like repeat after me. If it's not perfect on the first time, it's still okay, or whatever it is. And then the person's like, it's trash. I'm trash. Everything is trash. I give up, Like,
My wife has like some song that she heard. It was like something like being really good at something means you have to like suck at it first, or something like that.
oh yeah, man.
Um,
I sucked at t-shirt design real hard before I got good. So yeah.
okay. Let's
Anyway,
I'm gonna let it slide. All right. I think people know what I was gonna do and
hey,
say.
don't turn that into something that it's not. I'm having a genuine conversation here. But no.
Okay, cool.
So let's just dig in and just start talking about things that we think that people should do. Maybe let's start with like before you get started with a business, right?
Yeah, I think which is interesting is I just recently had a conversation with somebody yesterday about a business venture that they were wanting to go down, and they were asking my opinion and my advice. The first thing I said is, before they were wanting to spend all this money on getting things going, like all this stuff, and I said, whoa.
Mm-hmm.
Don't spend a dime. Don't spend a single dime yet. You need to make sure that there's a market for it. And what this person wanted to do, I'm not going to give their business idea away, but
that's the next episode. We're detailing their business plan.
Detailing the whole thing so some people can steal it. So get your pens and paper ready. No, but it relied on event space, like it required being connected to outdoor events and stuff like that. And I said, you need to call and make sure there's a market there first before you spend. I mean, she was going to spend like thousands of dollars on stuff. And I was like, before you spend anything, like I would hate for you to spend all that money and then you put this thing together and then you start to pitch it and then no
Yeah.
one's interested at all. Um, and then you also got to know what price point you're going to be at, right? So
Mm,
is it even something worth your time? Is it,
yeah.
if you've got look at your margins and all that sort of stuff ahead of time. So when you dive into it, you already know what you're going to price it for. That it could change. That doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But have some sort of an idea of realistically, if I go down this venture, am I going to make any actual money off of it?
Yeah.
What is my
Everything that you
margins? Like
said is like encompassing the bigger ideal of make a business plan, right? And
100%. Yeah.
a lot of that requires you to do research. I've talked to people before and they're like, "Hey, I've got this great idea." Or I've even had like, "Oh, I have this really cool idea." Um, and then I sit with it in my head. And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, it'd be cool to do this. It is." And then I'll go to Google, tap, 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 tap. And I'm like, oh, it exists. And it's cooler than I
Yeah,
could
but
have done it.
Yeah, but that's where I was going to go next. Is even if you do the research and there's people out there, you're going to have competition. There's nothing
Mhm.
really new under the sun. Somebody's got something similar to what you do.
Yeah.
You just have to figure out how do you make it better and what are your biggest differentiators. And if you can figure
Yeah.
those two things out based on what your competition's doing, I mean, we build websites. Like it's nothing new. Like
What?
there's thousands of other companies that do what we do.
Yeah. Tens of
But
thousands.
one, there's enough. There's
There's no
enough.
one else. Listeners, be rest assured, there's no one that does what we do.
Yeah. No, but what we had to do is we had to figure out what makes us different.
Yeah.
There's enough fish in the sea that you can do. We can build websites, and all these other ones can build websites, and there's
Mhm.
enough businesses out there that we can service and they can service as well.
Yeah.
But how can you make it different? How can you make yours
Yeah.
better? Your product better?
Differentiators is a huge word that one of my old bosses used to use. He said that it was like the key to being successful was to clearly understand your differentiator and have everybody on your team understand what your brand differentiator was. Because once you understand your differentiator, you have a clear vision and you can set your goals for the company. Once you have your differentiators, you know how to position your branding and your business strategy. You know how to write your marketing copy and develop your marketing campaigns because everything hooks back to that differentiator. How is your product? That now again, this is if there's competition in the space. Like if you're creating some brand new widget, you might be have a little bit of a different scenario here. But for most people who are entering the market with competition, understanding that differentiator will give you a clear vision of all the steps to take from that point on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that if you start there, do your to your point, starting with market research, going in. What is the red link do? Do your research to figure out.
Yeah.
If there is a need for it, because you may have this really good idea, but it may not be a thing that people want.
Yeah.
And there may be it may be a thing where you do spend all this time, you do your research, and people you do see that maybe people do want this, but then you get in there and you're like, no, you do all this work research and you put it together, and it's still not.
I'm thinking
Viable.
there's I can't remember who it was I used. It was fairly affordable, the service I used. I can't remember the name of it, but for polling, I used to use this at one of my old jobs where I would need to get feedback on a topic. And so I would create like a poll, create like a survey kind of thing, and then send it out. Now, granted, I would send it out to friends and family to get it started. And then
It's about like a focus group is basically your thinking, right?
yeah, but like an affordable one. Gosh, I don't know. Is it Survey Monkey or one of those like that? I can't remember, but I think you can like buy responses from like whatever your target demographic is, and then they can give you feedback They can give you
yes, I
feedback
do remember
on your
this.
surveys. It's
We
been
used it a couple times.
yeah, it's been a really long time, but they're very handy when you're getting started and you have nowhere to start. I used them at one of my old companies when we were looking at developing a new program for families and kids, and we didn't know like what direction to go with the artwork. And so we had like a bunch of different designs, and we were like, "Hey, which ones do you like best? Like, what emotions do you have when you do this? Like, do you want to do this or this?" And so this is all to say, please just do your research ahead of time. A lot of people just kind of roll their eyes, like, "Yeah, I do, but I will." But then there's a lot of people who they have an idea and they get so excited about the idea and wanting to see that grow and what will happen if they are successful and how that can change their life and their family's lives, that they forget to do all the kind of the grunty legwork ahead of time. When
They
it
want to
comes
do that. Let's skip to the good part, or they do the hand.
Yeah, with the hand, and it's no.
But I did the hand thing.
Yeah, I did the hand thing.
Yeah, but yeah, it's I think people get discouraged too because they're like, no, I like this idea, I like it so much. I don't want I don't want somebody to pop the bubble for me and then get online and all of a sudden it's like, and then you're like, okay, well, I'm not going to do it. That doesn't mean like just because somebody out there doing it, who cares? See if you can figure out how to do it better. There's a million people that have restaurants, but they still keep opening restaurants. You know what I mean? Like,
with that said, please don't open a restaurant. There's not a high success rate on that. Unless you're,
he'll do that.
Yeah, don't do that. Anyway, so we talked about.
I was saying you
research.
don't do
That's
that.
Huge. Me don't do. Me don't discourage people.
Yeah, man, don't discourage them. If they want to, hey, listen. If you're sitting there thinking, listening to this and going, I want to start a restaurant, don't listen to Jason.
How about this? How about this? Here's a caveat. So I come from a family of restaurateurs. My family's been in the restaurant business since I was 7 years old, and I worked in that business. I worked on it. I worked in it evenings, weekends. Tried to get away as a busboy to a seafood restaurant. Hated it. Went back. Worked every weekend in college except for 2. And after college, I graduated and I ran it for 4 or 5 years. So I know the restaurant business. I know what it's like right now. I know what the way it was, and I know probably the way it's going to be. Restaurants are really hard work. It's not something I would ever recommend. So if you're interested in restaurants, just message me, and then we can have a chat. We can set up a Zoom call and we can talk about it.
Don't discourage. Don't discourage. Just encourage and give advice. There you go.
I don't know. Don't discourage. Just encourage. I don't know if I can do that, a blanket statement, but yeah, set up a Zoom and call me if you're interested in setting a restaurant, and I can discourage you privately. Anyway, moving on. So we talked about research and doing all the legwork as far as like what your business will be. I think it's also important to think about if you have a product that's like a physical product or a digital product, where are you going to sell it? And how are you going to sell it? Like, are you like a live event kind of thing, or a store, like a physical brick and mortar store, or is it going to be online? And if it's online in a store, how are you going to get people to your online store? And for that matter, how are you going to get people to your physical store? Are you going to rely on word of mouth and good location, or are you going to rely, if it's online, what kind of marketing budget are you spending? Right. So there's a lot that comes into play when it comes to actually selling your product. It's not enough just to have a really awesome idea and product. You then have to get it in front of people.
Yeah, I think there's that misconception, and we hear it all the time of, well, I've got this great website, or why are people not coming? Why I have this great product, why are people not buying it? It's because they don't know about it yet. And you got to spend the time and effort into getting them to know about it. And that's typically where marketing can be fun, but also very frustrating. And I think that one of the problems that we see a lot of times with businesses is they don't, they're willing to, they know that it's going to take some time to grow. But when things don't work out the way that they want to, on a good idea, they get extremely discouraged. And I think that you have to look at marketing as, you can't be discouraged by it. It's a trial and error, and it's always going to be that way. Because the way we think in our minds of, this is a great product, I don't see how this is going to fail, or this is a great ad campaign, I don't see how it could fail. I remember as a marketing director, we would put together these really awesome graphics and videos, and we had landing page, like everything looked incredible,
stunning,
and we would put it out in the world thinking, this is like, in 15 minutes we're gonna be roll, and then nothing happens for like weeks, and you're like, what is the problem? And that's where you just start to, don't give up on that campaign, just diagnose it, test a couple of things. And to your point, like, don't get discouraged. And
you know, I think one of the biggest things that we see as a marketing and design agency is that people will budget for spending money on the things that they can see. So like, it's I have my branding, I see my website. You can see marketing, you know, like you could see like the marketing, like ads, but like all the money that goes into running the campaign, that's the money that goes to the actual platform that you're advertising on. People don't budget for that. And they have a lot of people have a really hard time putting money towards that. And that's really hard. It's a really difficult conversation to have, because we have it a lot, is like, okay, this is how much the website's going to be. Like, okay, cool, let's do it. Okay, well, in order to make it successful, it needs to have growth tools behind it. We need to have marketing. We need to have some managed SEO stuff. We need to have optimization here and there. We need to do some testing on it. We need to it's an ongoing process. And it's not something that just kind of ends when the website's been built. And a lot of people don't budget for that. And so I think it's really important for you to, as you're thinking about your business and how it's going to grow, to make sure that you're earmarking money for marketing. And to your point earlier, it can get a little stressful, especially when you don't earmark a lot of money for marketing and your campaigns aren't successful out of the gate. You know, like 15 minutes after launch, and your campaigns aren't producing sales yet. It can get super stressful, because you just see your marketing budget kind of going down and down and down. And you're like, oh man, gosh, I really would like a sale so that I can justify this money that I'm spending. But it takes time. It takes time to dial it in, you know, but you just got to be ready to spend some money on marketing. If you want to be successful in a space that needs marketing, right? You might not even need it. You might have something that you sell locally inside another business, you know, as your side hustle. You might be inside another business. You might follow a festival circuit, and you might have like a booth at these festivals, and you have the automatic audience that's going to come with each being in each of these new locations. And you just need some basic marketing materials on a website, and people, once they're there, they can check you out and buy your stuff. And so that might be something that you have, but for the majority of people who actually need to tell the world that they exist and, you know, get people interested in their product, you need to make sure that you're thinking about your marketing spend.
Yeah. And I think to piggyback on something you said earlier, I think another thing you got to start nailing down is your processes. Especially if you have products that you're selling that you need to ship, or they make a purchase and you got to package up and then get it out the door, or put together, package it up to like put it together, assemble. I don't know, whatever it looks like for you. You got to think through what that process is going to look like, because I think that it's easy to get into the exciting parts, and then the processing of how that shipment's going to happen, or how those orders are going to be placed, and what's the flow that it needs to go through. isn't the fun part, right? Isn't the thing you get super excited about. But it's so, so, so important to know that. So when you do sit down to build your website, whether it's you or working with somebody else, you already have like, okay, here's the flow that needs to happen. And just know that you may have it down, and then you may have to tweak it later. But the thing is like just processing in your brain, like what are my processes what is this gonna require? Because then like you know what to ask for when you are building, you'll know when you're building your website, or you'll know what things you're going to need to spend money on in order for that process to flow, whether it's bringing in somebody else to help you with it, whether it's a program that you're going to need, or whether it's finding the right program you're going to need to process the flow that you need it to be in. Now you know what to go after.
Yeah. Gosh, I had something. There was something that you just said, and it ticked a box in my head, and I was like, "Oh yes, we definitely need to talk about that," but it's escaped me. But no, I think that so we've covered so far. We've covered doing the research ahead of time. We've talked about reviewing your marketing budget and making sure that you're all set there. I think it's also important that we talk about making sure that you have knowledgeable people surrounding you in the areas that you need.
Yeah.
So that can be anything from having like a mentor to having a good peer group to rely on, to also having access to people who can handle different parts of your business that you don't know. So for example, like I think that a lot of people would need some type of an accounting service, whether it's to help them throughout the year or just at tax time. I would think that it's important to let the professionals do what they do best. It's the whole reason why we're in the industry, and you are thinking like you, the general you, not you, Zach, sitting on the other side of the camera.
I get it.
But the general you, like the whole reason that you are getting into an area of specialty is because you're good at it. And you find joy in that. And so for the same reason that you want people to work with you in your business, it's the same reason why you need to lean on people who are specialists in their business. And for me, the top thing in my mind is making sure that you have somebody who's good with money that can help you to understand your budget, to understand what you're doing, and then like all the tax stuff and the forms that are required. Yeah, all of that, like that needs to be handled by somebody with a very like logical brain, you know? And
right. Yeah, well, to kind of springboard off that, to broaden what you just said, know what your strengths and weaknesses are, and fill the gaps where your weaknesses are. If you already know what you're good at, okay, well, if you know what your weaknesses are, it's automatically, okay, I got to get this person in place, or this service in place, or maybe it's a person, or maybe it's a program or software that solves that problem for you. So yeah, I agree. Know your strengths and weaknesses before you dive in, because it'll save you a headache later down the road.
I just thought of it. My brain just went ping. What I was going to say earlier with what you were saying. Develop a SOP. Develop a standard operating procedure in your business. Yeah. And this is something that I have on several things just written down as we were starting the company, and even when I'm like working by myself, notes on like how I do things and how things need to be built. Because eventually, if you want it to, your business will grow, and you will need help, and you will need to be able to onboard people. And rather than starting from scratch, if you have documents that you've written where like, oh, this is how I start building my website, and this is how we do our market research for this, and this is how I set up my Facebook ad campaign, and this is how I set this up, and this is who I talk to over here, and just having like a guide. It might seem silly to write it for yourself, and but that's okay, because once you're ready to get help, it's gonna pay off big time, because you've already got it all detailed.
Yeah. You don't have to on that onboarding, it makes it so much easier. Just read this document. I'm gonna walk you through exactly what this looks like, and then I want you to do it. So handing it off to people like that is a big deal.
Agreed. Okay, so we're about 25 minutes. What do you say we like wrap this and then like we pick this up on another episode? Because I feel like we could go on for like hours on this topic, you know?
Probably, yeah.
Because at this point, we haven't even started our business yet. We haven't even started our
wait. Company. We haven't done market. Okay. Whew, I was about to say, what have we been doing for 8 years?
We've been talking for 8 years.
You know, we've been doing market research for 8 years, but getting paid to do it somehow.
Yeah, we've been existing and living our lives on. That's that angel investor that we talked about years ago.
Weird angel investors of our own.
We're angel investing in ourselves.
I like it. That's an inside joke for me and Jason. We always said if somebody when we were first started out, it's like somebody would just give us like $500,000.
That would just make things so much better.
we could just live off of that for, you know, a year or 2, 3 or 4. And we could actually get it rolling.
Just focus on growing the business. Yeah.
That never happened. Unless somebody still wants to do that. Like, we're totally fine with that.
I never saw an angel investor show up on my door. I didn't get any emails. I didn't get any phone calls, no voicemails, no texts, no faxes.
Hold on.
Check your email real quick.
I'm checking my spam. It's got to be in spam. It's probably in a LinkedIn like message that got lost somewhere.
Maybe they wrote a letter, but they forgot the address, and so it just ended up at the dead letter office. So it's sitting at the post office for 8 years now.
It's not a dead. Is there a dead letter office?
Yeah, that's a thing, right? Dead letter office. Excuse us, folks, while I Google dead letter mail. Yeah. The DLO is a facility within the postal system where undeliverable mail is processed. The dead letter office. Yep.
Wow. D-Lo. Is that J-Lo's sister?
Dad.
Daddy Lopez.
Okay, I don't know what happened to the ending of this episode, but I think we should we've been rambling for like 2 minutes now.
All right. Well, enjoy your day and keep hustling.
Yeah. Get out there, make it happen, Captain. See you guys.